Frederick County has a long and storied history dating back 275 years. The Maryland Room at the Burr Artz Library in downtown Frederick has become the repository of many of our county's historical records, documents, and stories. In charge of it all is Mary Mannix, an archivist who has been working for Frederick County Public Library since 1998. Mary has become a must-visit resource for all those seeking information about Frederick County history. This is her story.
My name is Mary Mannix. I'm the Maryland Room Manager at the Burr Artz Public Library of Frederick County Public Libraries. I've been here for nearly 25 years. I got into history because I came from a family who was always very interested in history. I grew up in central New Jersey. We were a family during that time on summer vacations. We'd go to Williamsburg, we'd go to Mystic Bay, we'd go to Sturbridge Village. We went to a lot of historic sites. Also, I was very influenced by the PBS show on the Six Wives of Henry VIII. And also the play 1776. So those are sort of defining moments for me, knowing that I wanted to become involved in history, that history is really the subject I care about. So I ended up going to Hood College because I wanted to go to a women's college, and New Jersey didn't really have any really strong women colleges at that time. So I came down to Hood, was a history major, also doubled in political science. After I graduated from Hood, I went to the University of Delaware for a degree in American history, and I really went for the certificate in museum studies. Again, my goal was to be a historic house curator. And I was looking for a real full-time history job. And I was going through the Washington Post back when there were want ads in the newspapers, and saw an ad for this job at Frederick County Public Libraries to manage the Maryland Room. And it was as if they'd taken my resume and written the job description. So the way that I've seen Frederick County history evolve during my time here is really a stronger emphasis on cultural and social history. There is a broader understanding, I think, in the larger community that history is history at all levels, that history includes all people who've lived in the area. It's just not the history of the formation of the community or the formation of the town. And also that today is history as well, and a broader active effort to document today's community at the same time. Something else I'd like people to always think about when they think about the history of any area is to realize that we are all a part of history of Frederick County. If you live in Frederick County, if you work in Frederick County, you are part of the history of Frederick County. Wherever you live, you are part of the history of that area, and the life that you lead and your interactions with the community are part of the history of that community. You know, we're all a drop in the ocean that is the history of all over time, and the history of where we live and where we work. So one thing that I think is very important when you're looking at the foundations of Frederick County, particularly if you're not familiar with the overall history of Maryland and not very familiar with the history of Frederick County itself, is that Frederick County was really the wilderness for a very long period of time. But Frederick was founded much later, 100 or so, a little more than that year later, than the Eastern Shore and Southern Maryland. And when it was founded in many ways, not completely, by Germanics, people who were coming out of what is now considered Germany, but also the surrounding areas as well, people who wouldn't want to be called Germans, people like the Swiss and other surrounding areas. And they are really one of the major people who came through here and were enticed by the landowners to stay here. The idea being that the Germanics were better farmers. So in order to, the sort of farming that the Germans were doing, they would grow grain, therefore they needed millers. They would grow rye, they needed distillers. You need community, you need towns. And also that brought forth the development of churches as well. So Frederick developed that way, the fact that the people who owned Frederick, who owned the land around here, such as Daniel Delaney, was going out of his way to grow a community, to grow a town, for a tax base is one reason for doing it, but then that made Maryland, Western Maryland, develop completely different. But the land itself is so incredibly valuable, and I don't mean financially valuable, but this land is really good land, and even if we're not utilizing it for agriculture, we should understand that that's part of the history of Frederick County, is just how good the soil was. So when I think of notable women of Frederick County, there are many notable women who are very, very famous, such as Claire McCardle, who's internationally known for fashion. But the people that come to my mind are people like Burr Artz. Burr Artz was responsible for giving the money to Frederick City for establishing the Burr Artz Library, which was named after her beloved husband, Christian Burr Artz. He moved outside Chicago, made lots of money, came back, married the lovely Margaret. She was slightly later in life. She was in kind of her mid to late 20s. And when they moved back to Chicago, she put in her will that if her daughter Victorine never married and never had any children, a sum of money would come to Frederick to establish a library. Other people that come to mind are people who were really important in the development of collections such as the Maryland Room. Would be Ann Lebhertz, who died just a few years back. Ann came down from New York to attend Hood College, married a local guy, moved to Braddock Heights, raised a family, but she was very involved in the establishment of Schifferstadt and Frederick County Landmarks Foundation. She's considered one of the founding mothers. And then finally, Rita Gordon. Rita and her husband Paul had been mayor. Rita and Paul collected a lot of materials. They're really the first kind of what I call kind of the middle class people in Frederick who were collecting things that were not of their family. They did a textbook history of Frederick County. They did some Civil War history. So they were working on the history of Frederick County, but also more importantly, collecting it, and also more importantly, supporting the establishment of paid positions in institutions such as the Maryland Room and the Historical Society. What does my future look like for Frederick County and the Maryland Room? Well, eventually I think I'm going to have to retire. So I don't have an exact time when I'm going to retire. I have been here for 25 years. I'm not as young as I once was. My goal maybe is to work until I'm 70. I may stop a little bit before then. Then I probably will stay in the Frederick County area. If I don't stay here, I'm still going to come back here and volunteer. I am presently on the board of Frederick County Landmarks Foundation, so I'd like to take those skills that I had in grad school many, many years ago and apply them back to museum work, kind of go back to where I started in regards to my role in public history. Also, my real dream is to work the visitor center at Visit Frederick, and I've mentioned that to them, so this is good because it's on tape, so maybe they'll feel they'll have to hire me when I retire. My other dream is to write a really good academic history of Frederick County public libraries. Happy 275th Frederick County. If you want to read more about it, about the history of Frederick County, please make sure to visit the Maryland Room at the Burr Artz Public Library or contact us through email or through phone. We are here to help meet all your information needs in regarding your understanding of the birthday year that we're in right now.